I don't have neither the patience nor the personality to put up with bullshit, work with people I don't particularly enjoy. There was one time, I remember my wife saying to me, it is like, here, you look a bit miserable. And I said to her, there is literally no one in the office whose company I enjoy.
Welcome to Consulting Uncensored, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the good, the bad, and the ugly of the consulting world. This is where real conversations happen about leadership, strategy, culture, and careers in consulting. Hosted by industry veteran Neal McNamara, each episode features candid discussions with consultants, executives, and firm leaders who are building, challenging, and reshaping the industry from the inside. No filters, no fluff, just honest insight into what actually works and what needs to change. This is Consulting Uncensored. Here's Neal.
Angus,
Neal,
welcome.
thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining me. As I mentioned, I try not to introduce my guests, even those that I may have known for 20 or so years. I'll let you give your story and then we can jump into the content.
Well, sure. It's not an easy story, in that I have not had the sort of the classic consulting career route in the slightest. So as you might tell from the accent, I'm originally from the UK and now hold a dual US-UK citizenship. But I actually started my career in the British Army for 10 years and then joined an American healthcare corporation doing corporate development work in Geneva in Switzerland. I was there for about 2 years. Was offered the chance to reload to the US, ended up in Nashville for 4 years. And then from there, actually moved into consulting with my move to Chicago. And ultimately, I have now worked at 3 of the big 4, which I think is a core reason of why I'm sitting here with you, despite the fact that we also worked at one of those big 4 ourselves.
Exactly. So yes, as you've seen in my posting and conversations, I've got some passion around talking about the big 4 and kind of talk about the good, bad, and the ugly of the big 4. I know we skew, as we were talking about earlier, I might skew towards the ugly a bit much. It's just too easy.
Yeah.
Just given a lot of content. So from that content pillar, let's say, a bunch of ways we can go, right? Like I said, we met each other at a big 4 20 plus years ago. When you're just talking about the big 4 generally and your experience, what would be some lanes you'd want to go down that you think would be interesting to dig into?
Well, there are multiple ones. So culture, leadership, toxicity of that leadership, frankly, in many instances, but also the teams that you have the privilege of leading and the people that you get to work with, not just within the firm itself, but also from a client perspective. But it's interesting. So the big 4, essentially 3 lines of business, right? So there's tax, there's audit, and there's consulting or advisory. I think one of the tensions that I saw is that while the businesses are complementary, they're actually very different.
Very. Yep.
And so at all of the firms that I worked at, developing solutions and platforms for the 3 lines of business ended up in creating incredibly vanilla platforms that didn't truly work for each of them individually. And the amount of sort of tortuous bureaucracy that created was an eye-opener. And so going back to the sort of the EY Project Everest, you can absolutely understand, I believe, why EY chose to go down that route.
For sure.
I think the execution of it left a lot to be desired.
Especially as one that was an expert in that part of the profession.
Well,
those type of deals. You in particular.
Well, exactly. But I could completely understand why they considered that as an option, because the businesses, as I say, are complementary, but they are different. They have different needs. They have different demands. They have different costs.
Well, and they also conflict.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What I liked about, from just an industry perspective, looking at what EY did, is I loved it from a strategic perspective, because they knew that 2 of the other big 4, I can't remember which ones, I think it may have been KPMG and Deloitte, there was a structural element of those firms that it wouldn't have been possible for them to do. And so I liked the idea of, okay, let's put people on the back foot. You guys can't do this. We're going to go do it, or at least we're going to be the first and put you guys on the back foot by doing that. I love that. But it's a shame that then they couldn't actually execute.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been fascinating to see how it shaped up.
Yeah.
I mean, God knows how that would have ultimately turned out. But as I say, I can see that why they went down that route. But you mentioned sort of structure there. So there's an awful lot of news at the moment around, BDO cut a bunch of partners. Yep. Is it KPMG? I think.
Yep. Last week announced
a bunch
of 10% cut in audit
of audit partners. And why is that? And everybody automatically defaults to it's AI.
There are a lot of layoffs right now that people are just doing because it's a bad market that's been blamed on AI.
Exactly. AI gets the blame for everything. Now, is that sort of part of the reason? I guess absolutely. But I think structurally, the Big Four just have too many partners. Yeah. There are just too many of them. And I remember, this is a few years ago, the firm that I was with announced its biggest partner class ever. But this was just at a time where people were anticipating immense volatility with the economy. Yep. So interest rates were going to go up, geopolitical tensions, a whole host of issues that suggested that the next 12 to 18 months was going to be pretty rocky and quite a difficult time. And I remember at the time thinking, it wasn't just me, it was a bunch of my fellow partners as well. I think, why are we admitting the largest class in our history, given what we are anticipating the short and medium term future to be? So that was one. And this is where I'm a natural cynic, by the way. So I'm convinced that the CEO at the time, it's about legacy building. It's about future resume building. Mm. And so it's for like personal reasons rather than generally what is good for the firm. Because I would absolutely venture this. I think across the Big Four, you could cut 20 to 25% of partners. And I don't think it would make the slightest difference to revenue in the slightest.
I absolutely would agree with you. Absolutely.
And I was reading...
You just wouldn't cut the ones that are driving the revenue.
And again, this is the whole structural issue, right? And I think this is where AI is going to have an impact, which is this sort of tenured, sort of like professor type of model that the Big Four have. And I was reading in the Irish Times very, very recently. So I saw this acronym called HUNC.
Okay.
Which is high units, no clients.
Oh, HUNC. Okay.
And it absolutely
I know a few of those.
It absolutely resonated with me because structurally what I've seen is that you have way too many partners with a high number of units, haven't been in front of a client for years, haven't sold anything in years, just wander from one internal role.
Well, that's the thing.
To
They're
another
given
internal
bullshit
role.
Leadership roles.
I'm going to use the English here.
Yes.
These ridiculous leadership roles, and they'll host, a practice or a sector call once a month. They'll plow through the most ridiculously dense deck imaginable that loses people sort of 10 minutes in. Yeah. And then they'll wander from one conference to the next.
Yes.
This sort of boondoggle.
Conference or charity events.
Or
they'll be on LinkedIn right now. I saw some last week of posting from the charity events and the internal meetings.
And you're thinking to yourself, I have no idea what you do. I literally have no idea what you do. But you have a share count significantly in excess of mine, and it's not going to go down.
Yep.
And this is and I think there's a huge shift to performance pay. So I think you have choices. So usually, I'm going to call them hunks now. I
like that acronym. Yes.
So I think the Big Four should be more aggressive at forcing retirement on people who are vested. Yeah. So they got the retirement benefits in the bag, they've got the pension, they've got all of that sort of stuff. But maybe the early mid-50s, let them go. to free up space and compensation for the line partners who are the ones selling the work, hustling, delivering, building teams, recruiting. Those are the people that deserve it. Or if you don't ask them to leave, just say, right, we're taking your share. We're going to reduce your share count by 50%. You can still be in this bullshit leadership role, but you're going to be compensated less than the people who are actually selling work.
And that makes a lot of sense. But here's the problem, is that, to use your new acronym, the hunks are the ones actually making the decisions too. So it's like, so how do you change the structure to actually, right? You almost need to bring in, and I've said this about, nobody's done this yet. Somebody needs to bring in an outsider to be the CEO. That's the only way you actually would make that, you'd be able to make that structural change, I feel like, is you got to bring a maverick or an outsider in to actually do something different.
I'm with you 100% on that. So you are seeing movement in that regard, not at the CEO level, but you are seeing movement in that regard, because there are some firms who have outside directors.
KPMG doesn't.
There's certainly one that I worked at who does have outside directors. I thought that was a good step.
That's a really good step.
But I do think you're absolutely right. That wouldn't that be fascinating for a big four to do an external CEO search?
Yeah. Grab somebody with Accenture, or there's all sorts of options that you can go to
because
that really can know how to run a firm
or
run like a business.
Different perspectives, different insights, different knowledge of industry broadly. I think it would just be a fascinating thing to do. Now, there are all sorts under the partnership agreement, and I'm not an expert in this in the slightest. You've got to be CPA, you've got to be this. There are all sorts
of that, but still,
all sorts of things that need to be taken into account. But I think exploring something like that would be absolutely fascinating, because the way, I think you will have experienced this, the senior partner, the CEO, comes up for re-election. The partners are just given a slate. These are the 4 or 5 people, and they've all been curated. They've all been chosen by some mass of whoever it is. And, they do the road shows, they do the hustings and all that sort of stuff. And you end up, electing a new partner. But to be honest, it was a bit of a dog and pony show, to be honest with you. But I think, getting back to this point, just considering an outsider, that would be, it's be something I'd pay.
Somebody's going to have to do it again, because there's just too much evolution of the market, I think, for them to really stay kind of those aircraft carrier levels that don't ship. They don't, but I don't know that the market's going to allow, even like going back to the Everest example, I think the firms are going to have to start thinking more creatively to really be competitive. And that's a way to think about how to, again, bring somebody in that's actually going to run this business much better than just some legacy audit partner that's very politically aligned throughout the organization.
Well, I agree with that. So here's the thing, right? So if you look at growth within the Big Four and some of the other consulting shops as well, I mean, clearly it's market economy dependent, but they'll grow what? I don't know, 5, 6, 8% a year. And they all claim that they're differentiated over each other. And the reality is, none of the Big Four is particularly differentiated. There
are select circumstances where they could be, but just like broad market base, you don't film out there and be like, oh, these guys have this strong.
We're pretty much all the same, right? And so I was chuckling. So AI hit the scene. What was it, about 2 years ago? What was it?
But probably last 12 months is when it's gotten really accelerated. Yeah. Yes.
And so what happens is, suddenly, everything suddenly became AI enabled. So it was exactly the same solution.
But now it's AI enabled, yes.
But now it's, whatever the solution name is.
Right.
Now it's AI enabled solution name. And everybody did it. And it's like, but the whole of the Big Four did it. So the bar is being raised, but everyone is at the same level on the bar.
Yep.
And so I'm a bit of a natural cynic here. There is very little But to your point, there may be slight areas where there truly is some form of differentiation.
Specialist industry
Exactly.
expertise or a technology or just, great people, right? You could have,
Yeah.
a team that's just the best at this in the world.
Yeah.
Which you'll have some of that in each of these.
Exactly. I remember being on all sorts of internal calls, and the leader would say, "Oh yeah, and we're completely differentiated. None of our competition has this." And it's like, what are you talking? You don't have a clue. Of course they have this. And I remember, because I worked at 3 of the big 4.
Right, yeah.
So I would go from one firm, I'd join another firm, and at the new firm, it would be, yeah, we've got this technology, this solution. No one else has this. And it's like, I was working on that at the place that I just came from. And by the way, it's actually more sophisticated than what you have here.
Or maybe that's today, but it's a matter of months before one of the other firms is going to figure it out and copy it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just like you have months of differentiation for like a technology like that, and then everybody figures it out. Everybody has the same type of development expertise that can go and copy it.
Yeah.
And it's months of an advantage, not years, and certainly not sustainable.
That's exactly it. So it was, oh yeah, but I always got a chuckle. So it's AI this, and in 6 months' time, whatever the new buzzword is, that's going to be the one that they'll carry through.
That's the other thing that's so funny. There's and some firms are more like this than others, but it's just a follow the leader. Oh my gosh. Whereas, like you said, when somebody's gonna become AI powered, and now they're gonna be AI powered. Like one of the things, and this will be a little controversial, but when I can't remember the order of, maybe Deloitte was the first Big Four that had a female CEO, and then there was PwC, then it was EY, then it was KPMG. It was like then it was like one had a female CEO. The next election, it was going to have to be a female. The next, so it's like every one of them went that way. It was kind of a funny one. It was like, well, I remember when I was at KPMG and I was like, well, the 3 others have a female CEO, so I'm pretty sure we're going to be electing the most capable woman to lead the firm now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, having said that, I think aspiring to that is absolutely the right thing. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I think your point, though, that they just play follow the leader is very germane. I absolutely agree with that. It's catch up. But I do believe that generally across the board that there is little innate core areas of differentiation.
Yep.
It's pretty much the same. Having said that, I was reading that in this AI-enabled world that we're in now, EY is taking a fundamentally different approach to audit than PwC. Now, that isn't to say that either one has the correct.
Well, yeah, it doesn't necessarily better. It's different. Doesn't necessarily mean it's better.
But they do seem to be going down different paths. Who knows which of those paths is going to be the winner? And so once we know that, then someone could claim our differentiated approach to the audit in this AI-enabled world was a difference maker.
Yeah.
And I fully accept that. But
I think fundamentally, though, when you step back about our business, at the end of the day, when you talk about like the differentiation, it's still a relationship-based sales business.
Yeah.
And it's about personal relationships that you have with buyers of our services. And that it trumps everything. A trusted relationship with the CFO, engaging the firm, engaging a firm on this is going to overcome somebody claiming they have a better mousetrap, a better technology, a better team, better industry expertise. If that guy, who's making the decision is looking at this woman partner who has a great relationship with them, has done great work for them, and she's like, no, we'll do it better than them, that wins.
Well, so this actually begs a question. So from a client perspective, what are they actually buying? Are they buying the brand, the Big Four brand, or are they buying the partner, the team, the competency, the capability, the cultural fit that they experience as you're going through the influencing and sales process? I would venture that in a significant amount of the time, what a client is buying is not the brand, but it is that person, it is that delivery team. And I would further venture that a client would prefer to follow that team.
Yes. Well, I think you just proved your point. There's no real differentiation between the big four. So if you're just basically selecting between the big four in this example, it doesn't matter what logo is on the person's business card. It's what team are they getting that, and what experience they have with that team that's executed for them. And if that whole team, lifted and shifted, from PwC to EY during the next proposal, and it could be that same team, they're going to select that team.
Yeah.
Which, so again, when you're competing amongst each other in that, I agree with you. I think that demonstrates, generally speaking, that there really isn't differentiation among them. As a brand, there is specific differentiation in specific opportunities. But again, a lot of times it comes down to the relationships and experience you've had with the team that's executing the work.
That's it. But that's exactly it. It's like an old cliche, but it comes down to you strip everything away. So you've proven you have the capabilities, you have the experience, the sector, blah, 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 blah. All of that's sort of a given. It just comes down to the beer test. Who do you want to have a beer with? Whose company are you going to enjoy being in the most?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And that's what it comes down to.
So we were talking earlier about the role of partner. I think this is probably good too, as we're talking about, the differentiation, the relationships and whatnot, and, the partner role / title and the structures of the firms and how this, this meritocracy element really doesn't exist in the way you would think it should. When stepping back and looking at it, there are partners that are driving tremendous amount of value at these firms that are getting paid less than partners that are generating very, very little value in firms. And this concept that, again, I think neither one of us realized until we were actually partners in these firms is that you have a partner title, but you are just a glorified employee. That's called a partner. Because it's not real equity, it's not real ownership. You're not in business with these guys and gals that are also partners. You're just, it's another layer of the organization. So yeah, just thoughts on that kind of reality and personal experience there.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, the reality is you have the partner title, and clearly it's a partnership structure. But I think the reality is you are pretty much a glorified employee. And in my experience of the three that I worked at, I'm not going to name it, there was one in particular where very much it was you were literally just an employee. In the others, less so. But yeah, pretty much you are an employee. But I think what you're now seeing with AI and with, performance-based pay, with private equity-backed challenger firms and boutiques, I think that's going to accelerate this employee feel.
Yes.
And especially given what I said earlier about the hunks, if you just start just removing the non-productive partners, it's going to feel more like a corporate type of environment,
right?
Rather than this sort of job for life. You've hit tenure, you can just hang around until you hit 60 or whatever the mandatory retirement. I think,
or you're just trying to hang around until you invest,
or you're just trying. Exactly.
Which is 60, at least at one of them. Like
I think it's 62 at one. Yeah. It's like 60, 62 is that sort of age range. But I think, generally you pretty much are ultimately an employee. It's how big are the partnerships, right? I don't know. Is it 3,000, 4,000?
Yeah, it's a few thousand. It's thousands.
Thousands. Whatever that count is. As I said, I'm convinced there are 25% unproductive, non-value added, just doing stuff that are sort of like hiding behind the scenes and doing stuff that you never have insight into. And one of the reasons I think that leads me towards feeling that you are more of an employee than a partner is the partnership structures are very opaque. Well, not the structures,
right?
But
not the legal documents. But big binder, but
yeah, maybe that was the wrong the wrong phrase. Not so much the structures, but how they operate. It's just very opaque.
How are decisions made?
How are decisions made? What is communicated? How it is communicated? When it's communicated? It's just very, very opaque. And yeah, I remember on a couple of times trying to get insight into, okay, so how partners review.
Yeah.
Because everyone has a boss, right?
Yep.
And so at year end, just as staff goes through their year-end reviews, partners go through year-end reviews. And it's just trying to get information. Okay, what is that process? Who sits in it? Right. Who ultimately makes the decision? No idea. No idea.
Or every practice is different.
Or,
That's
yeah,
the other thing.
exactly.
Like,
Or,
I mean, where we used to be, that was
Yeah.
like, you knew it was one guy
Yeah.
that made all the decisions.
Yeah, well, exactly. But maybe this is going off at the time. I remember at one firm, we were doing year-end reviews, not for partners, this is for staff. And this is at the time where, for various reasons, I knew I really had to leave this particular firm. And I was, very close to pulling the trigger on that. And we had year-end reviews for the staff. And there was one person that we were reviewing, who was senior manager, director. All the metrics were there. I mean, just nailed it. Utilization, engagement, not revenue, engagement, managed revenue for the engagement. Just every metric. It was just brilliant and super smart. I mean, there were no questions about that. But in that year, there were 2 and maybe 3 HR complaints for almost like physical abuse. Picking up a laptop and smashing it, screaming, just ridiculous behavior. And this person was on a big project. It wasn't mine, but it was a big project, a lot of revenue associated with it. And we had the year-end review. And let's say they were rated 1 to 5, and let's say 5 was the highest rating.
Okay, yeah.
And the career leader was sort of giving the spiel. And it was like, and I recommend a 5. Has to be a 5. And it's like, okay. You've got 2 or 3 HR complaints for abusive behavior. What is the matter with you? This is absurd. And I was the only partner the only one that had that reaction. I mean, the only one.
Driving a lot of revenue.
Driving a lot of revenue.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is not who I am. This isn't who we should be. This is utterly ridiculous. Do you realize the message that is being sent?
Yep.
And anyway, shortly thereafter, I left. And when I left, it was never, ever for money.
We've never spoken about that.
Never, ever for money.
But one of my kind of compensation kind of philosophies is that if you'll leave for money, you'll leave for money. And so this is more of in our hiring now, right? It's like, so if I'm going to, if you got guys that are shopping around and I need to, buy them out to come work for us, well, they're going to do it to that firm. Why wouldn't they just do it to me later?
Yeah.
And so you really have to be careful when you're enticing people only with, big promises and money there, because they will just, there's nothing to stop them from just leaving for more money somewhere else. So it's...
Well, I remember, and I'm not going to name the individual in the slightest, but I think you will know who I'm referring to. But I left a firm and, I spoke to a practice leader and said, this is what is going to happen. And just looked at me and said, well, we'll match and give you 25% extra. That was literally the response.
If you can give me 25% extra, why am I making? So you're underpaying me by 25%, right?
But that was exactly it. And I thought, well, hold on. So my value is a match plus 25%. Why am I not making that now?
Exactly.
Can you explain that one to me? And it was extraordinary. So to this person that said that, in their mind's eye, the only thing that motivated anyone was compensation.
Yep. I think I know who you're talking about. Yep.
I mean, it was...
Yeah, that was it.
It was utterly crazy.
Fear and compensation Those were known some leaders that's kind of what those are the levers they pull.
Yeah.
But yeah, that comp lever was a big one, and yeah, so couldn't understand why anybody, that's how people are motivated. That's what I have to do, and
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
this discussion reminds me of like my first business mentor, like when I was freshman, sophomore in college guy. That was dad of a girlfriend of mine back in the day. He was the Anderson partner. And so he kind of took me under his wing when he knew I was going to be, I'm probably going to major in accounting and all this stuff. And I remember I didn't understand what he meant by it. But he's like, listen, Neal, you're going to go, you're going to start working and you're going to be grinding. You're going to do really well. And you're going to be put on this path to partner and you're going to do all the things and you're going to get there. And he's like, but then you're going to get to that point where you can be partner. And then you're going to ask yourself whether you really want to be. And I did not. I was like, well, okay, if I'm going to do all this, why wouldn't I? And it really became evident, actually, when I was up for partner, this all came back. And it was this whole thing of, and this is where the reality of partner being just a glorified employee helped. Because I'm like, okay, you're asking me to, join this partnership, which effectively you're saying, all right, if it's truly a partnership, I should look at it and say, well, I'm now in business with every one of you partners, right? And I was like, so if I was to start a business tomorrow, would I start a business with any of them as partners? Fuck no, right? Like maybe 5% at best, maybe 5 guys that have, 5 individuals that I'd worked with over the course of my career. Would I have ever, and I've got one of them working with me now. He's one of the 5, right? And so that I really struggled with that. And then what was able to kind of get me over the hump was accepting realizing that, oh, actually this isn't a real partner. This isn't real equity. I'm just going to be a very highly compensated guy with a partner title. I'm not going to really be getting, I'm not going to be compensated based off of the value I'm creating for the firm. And like I said, it's not like I have a real equity that's going to grow in value that I'll be able to sell someday. I'm just a highly compensated guy with a title of partner versus VP or president.
But it's interesting you say that because that's actually a critical question to ask. So if you have a genuinely high-performing, let's call it director, right? So that's the step below partner, a very high-performing director. That is a critical question to ask, is do you want to be a partner?
Yeah. Back to our point of realizing this after a partners, I think the firms do a terrible job of explaining what the hell it even means. Well, what is a partner? How are you even compensated? Right? I think it's a big mystery until you actually get there.
Well, it's a huge mystery, and therein lie some tales, but which we'll get onto. But it is a critical question to ask. And I've known, and friends of mine to this day, incredibly high-performing directors who have left because they just said, I just don't want to be a partner. I see what you go through. I see your life is not for me. It's not something that I want, which I can completely respect and understand.
It's not for everybody.
And then the admittance process, I think, to your point, needs to be enhanced and improved. I remember when I went through it. So you've got to fill your business case there. You've got to do all of this sort of stuff. You've got to have sponsors and supporters and all of this and interviews and God knows what. But I remember distinctly saying to my wife that it got to a point where I said, I just don't care about this anymore. Because yet again, at like 5 o'clock on a Friday, it was, you need to fill this form in and we need to have it by, midnight Eastern time. And I looked at this thing, I have given you this information every which way to Sunday over the last, 6 to 9 months. It's an absurd process. And I said to my wife, I said, I'm done. I literally cannot be bothered with this crap anymore. And so I guess I submitted it. I don't know what happened. Anyway, it sort of worked. And now I've seen the partner admittance process at other places. It's awful. It is the most stressful thing imaginable. I do agree that as part of the admittance process, there could be greater clarity and communication to potential partners as to what it means, because it's dark. And then you're made partner, and then it's like Pandora's box is open. And I do think that that sort of runway or that ramp could be improved, because it is a truly, truly stressful process to go through. I mean, right up to the end. And sorry, Neal, here's the other thing is, so when you are a new partner, it's a different job spec. But how do I phrase it? It's like, it's not that your behaviors change, but but certain things change. And what I have noticed is sometimes it takes a decent period of time for a new partner to truly understand what it means to be a partner.
For sure. Yeah.
And I remember I was getting calls 2 years after people had made partner. It's, can I do this and can I do that? And it's like, you're a partner.
Yeah, makes sense.
Just do it. Well, what happens if, I make the wrong decision? You own the business. Someone will slap your wrist, and
or if you're politically out of favor, you get fired. Which means you're not a partner.
Yeah.
Because you can't just, if it's this easy to say we're cutting, like the news last week, KPMG cutting 10% of, it's not a true partnership if you can just riff 10% of the partners like that.
well, yeah, but that's true. But it gets back to the earlier conversation. I think you have to have that more corporate mentality.
Oh, I agree. But there's just, but it's not a partnership.
But it's not a true partnership.
Yeah.
But then, does that even exist?
No.
I mean, if you,
but that's the thing, just don't pretend like it. Like, the partners meetings, like, don't act like, you don't kind of blow smoke and act like we're all in this together. We're all part of this big entity. We're all, the results of the firm somehow ties into our compensation at the end of the day, but it really doesn't. Yeah. It's only, it's only ties into a sliver of it, because your boss sets what your actual target compensation is, and whether the firm comes in at 101% or 98%, of that impacts what your final payout is. But it's not like we're really, sharing that my units, tied to a profit share that's going to flow to me based on the firm prop.
Well, I remember I was chuckling. So I remember when I was leading a national practice, and it came to budget time, and so the center just sent me all of this budget material, and I had to do market studies and trends analysis and competitor analysis, and this whole rigmarole. And it was my sort of first time doing it, and I thought, great, I'm going to go to town on it. And I spent a ton on this, did some actually really good work, and submitted it, and it was like, number's too low.
You guys tell me what the number needed to be, please.
And it was like, it was literally, number's too low. Well, I did everything that you said. There's some serious hardcore analysis here. What? Add 10%?
Yes.
No, too low. It got to the point. Well, I just gave up. Yeah. I said, I'm sick and tired of this. And it's like, you have a number. Give me the number, exactly, and that will be my budget.
Yep.
And my commitment to you is, I will do whatever I can to try to hit this ridiculous number that you've just given me. But let's not play games here.
Yeah, the top down just is what it is.
Yeah.
You talked about the partner. I mean, the most ridiculous partner promotion story that I have was in the first time that I was actually on the panel as an evaluator.
Oh, okay. Right? I never did that.
It was good. It was a really good process. Really enjoyed it until the very end, because we go in, we have it was kind of all the different practice leaders. You had like the accounting advisory and the diligence, integration, separation. So I actually had my own people, right? Technically, they were there, and so we go through, and at the end of the day, right, you got to go and you do a force ranking, and we do the force ranking, and that's what kind of gets submitted up to the CEO. And I remember this very specifically. There was because it was one of my people. I think there were 17. Let's call it 17 people up. She was 17 out of 17 by every single evaluator on the panel. It was like the last place person comes back to us, and the female CEO took the female that was ranked 17 out of 17, circled her, pulled her up to number 4, and the, white male that was number 4 got to take another lap. And I'm just like, and again, I should have been like happy, right? This is my person made. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. That's how this place is run? Like, this is how we're making decisions here? And there was really what got very uncomfortable is that everybody, again, like, numbers aren't terribly secrets on, like, you know who's selling a bunch of work, you know who's managing, who has a lot of, you might not have access to managed revenue numbers, but you can kind of do the math, right? You can look on the staffing calls and say, well, this partner's running this job and has these 2 people working for him, and that's all that's working for him. So can I manage already? So then I have other partners come up to me, younger partners in the practice that are reporting to me. They're like, you got to tell me how that happened. I was like, I kind of can't because I'm not going to lie to you. And if I tell you the truth, I'm probably going to get in trouble. So how about we just not talk about it? It was just unbelievable.
I mentioned the largest partner class that was admitted. Right. I mean, I remember seeing the list and you're reading through the names, a lot of names. And it's, I mean, to your point, you just know. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. How did he get on here? Yeah. This is absurd. And so it's like sort of the deep state is at work, sort of behind the scenes, just doing its thing. But here's the thing, though. I think that the metrics that are used to consider future partners need to be reevaluated as well. Because, in my experience, generally what it is, it's a 3-year look back at, your metrics, right? So it's revenue, it's engagement revenue, it's utilization, it's, hard, quantifiable data. Oh, and also your performance ratings, right? Just hard data. Tick, 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 tick. Which suggests that the sole criteria to be a good partner is your ability to sell and deliver work. Okay, not going to disagree with that.
Yeah, it's pretty important.
Pretty important.
If you can't do that, you can't be a partner.
I agree, but it is not the sole.
For sure.
They're not the sole bases on which to make someone a partner. And what generally isn't taken into account or wasn't visible from my perspective is, what are their leadership qualities like? Can they build high-performing teams? Do people like working with them? And it's not so much, are they popular? Yeah. But are they respected?
That people want to work on their projects.
That people want to work on their projects.
Will people do extra work for them?
Will people go the extra yard?
One of my questions when I was on these panels, even for MD, was I always said, give me 5 people that you can call on Friday night with a proposal that'll work through the weekend with you. And if you can't name those people, you're not going to be successful in this role.
Well, that's exactly it. What are their communication skills? What are their client relationship skills? What have they contributed from a thought capital, from an IP, POV development? Because in order to sell and deliver work, you've got to create teams to do that.
That's right.
With you. And so too often, I think people were admitted into the partnership on a false data set. And so they may have ticked the box on a particular client for a particular type of project work. But when that client project ended, that particular type of work ended, they were lost. And no one wanted to work with them.
But you could have found out all of this before.
And you could have found it out beforehand. And I think this sort of is a segue now into training. Because generally in my experience, Big Four training is pretty average.
It's a joke.
And I'm being polite in saying that it's average.
Yeah.
Because so I've been out of a Big Four environment now for coming up to 12 months. So things could have changed. But there was zero training on leadership.
Correct.
Communication styles, problem analysis, solution development, nothing. Or basic consulting skills. There was a ton of training on, This is how you create a TSA schedule. This is how you do synergy
or
analysis.
CPE stuff, or ethics and compliance stuff.
Exactly. Which is all relevant and good stuff. But there was, frankly, zero training on how to be a good consultant.
Yes, that's only in the Big Four. That's really only done through direct mentoring, and that's where that's how that's the only way it happens. It's definitely not institutional.
And to me, it is a huge weakness when I was in the Big Four environment, that capital wasn't allocated to training people to be really good consultants. Mm-hmm. Which then segues into your ability to enhance your ability to be effective at building relationships.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? And then the training that we did have, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars poured into the most childish crap imaginable, that just ticked the latest fad or trend that was going on in the economy. And I remember thinking to myself,
or in the culture.
Or in the culture. And you think to yourself, this is the most childish nonsense that I've ever come across. And I sometimes think almost what they should do is just give everybody a subscription to the Journal, Wired magazine, and maybe one other. So you've got, finance and business covered, you've got technology covered, and maybe throw in another one and just say, read. Right, read. It'll save ourselves a ton of money.
Yeah.
It'll be HBR. Yeah. Save ourselves a ton of money. It'll be more fun.
It will, and those actually care will use it and learn. And those that don't are the same ones that sit in there and work, or literally skip the dang classes and have somebody sign them in.
I will say this though. So before I was in the Big Four, I spent 2 years at Accenture, and best training I've ever,
that doesn't surprise me,
ever been on. So this is the early 2000s. I don't know if they still operated or not, but out in St. Charles.
St. Charles, yeah.
Best training I have.
I mean, that's Anderson, right? Anderson
ever done.
Like I said, they really screwed some things up, but there were things they were head and shoulders better than. They talk about so that's interesting. Our earlier comment or conversation around the lack of brand differentiation. Anderson had it. Yeah. Now they had it also because of what we said. How you differentiate is relationships. They took a differentiated approach to client and employee relationships, and as a strategy, took such good care, did better training. Really, I mean, the way they ran that firm was truly better than, which shows that it's back. It was disgraced, but it's back. It's a publicly traded. The name is on a publicly traded company now. Yeah. Now, just what? How many years? We're 20 years removed from Enron.
Oh,
no, less than 20.
Yeah.
When was it? No, it's 20.
No,
it was
02, isn't it?
02, I think, is when it happened. 'Cause I was over in Europe when it happened. Yeah, 02. So we're 20 plus years removed, just 20 years removed. And now that disgraced firm that went out of business did an IPO. Yeah. Different firm, but the name, they kept the name. The name has brand cachet still, where the others don't.
But I swear, best training I've ever done. It was outstanding.
Yeah.
And I believe, is it Deloitte, is in fact KPMG, do they now have dedicated learning centers down in Florida?
Yeah, they build out, they did like a $500 million build out of some training center on a.
So I had no idea, what they're like or how good they are. Yeah. But if it's anything like what Accenture was doing, they'll be in a good place. If you could tap into that, they'll be in a good place.
Yeah, that would be, I didn't think about that. But that, like I said, that was something special. Everybody that went through there, and I think some other firm owns it now. I think it's still used as a training center, or maybe it's like a leased out training center, not dedicated to one company. But that place still exists, and it's legendary. Yeah. It's absolutely legendary. So, you want to do any toxic leadership stories? Those are always fun. I know you have a few. I have a few.
Oh man. Well, God, I don't even know where to start. Yeah, that we.
So I mean, maybe starting to again, how do guys and gals generally get into leadership positions in the Big Four? What have you seen? My premise is, I'll take one lane. There are a few lanes, but one of them is just simply politics. Just
100%.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest impact is just how politically aligned are you within the organization? Is a start is one of. Sorry. Now you do get some of this guy or gal was a really big rainmaker, and they throw them into a leadership position. They fail because, like you said, they were really great at sales. Nobody taught them how to be a leader. But you get some of that too. But politics are still
so that it's like toxic leadership and ineffective leadership. But I think your last point is absolutely spot on. I think from a general perspective, the higher up you go, I think the more vanilla,
yes,
to be honest with you, it becomes. Because vanilla implies neutral, haven't rocked the boat, haven't created any enemies. People
keeps you in the seat.
Keeps you in the
people.
You're not offensive to people. People. Yeah, he doesn't piss me off. So I
don't think neither one of us would have ever been considered one of the vanilla guys, would we?
No, absolutely. So it's almost, and that's not to knock anyone in these positions, but it's just the nature of the partnership structure where you go through this sort of.
It's a survival mechanism.
So it is absolutely politics. It's causing the minimum offense to the most people. I think, have I got that right?
Yeah.
It's just not rocking the boat, right?
Yep.
So your other point, there are way, way too many people who are brilliant at serving their clients, who are brilliant technically at what they do. So great sales and delivery people. That does not equate into being able to lead a practice.
100%. Yep. It can, and you're a unicorn, and there's some out there.
And
the best ones, the best ones are, and those are the ones that should be in a leadership position.
Exactly. But generally they'll rock the boat.
Yeah.
So,
yes. Right.
So, but what happens is you take these people and you say, because you're great with this client, you're churning revenue, you're great at your job, you're now going to lead this
Congratulations.
practice.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's, well, maybe that type of role is not the best fit for that person. But what you should be doing is doubling down on their ability to serve that client and maybe other clients.
And compensating them appropriately for it too.
Compensate them for that effort. Because I've absolutely, had conversations with some folks, and they have admitted, all I want to do is just sell work for my client and deliver work for my client. I hate the politics. I hate the bullshit. I hate the bureaucracy. I just want to get in and do X with client
which is why
Y.
Which is why you've got to modify the comp structure to allow for true differentiated pay for doing that 2-3x others, because it's true value.
Well, comp is a significant part of it, but I'm going to double back on this. We don't train people how to be leaders.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
We train them to be technically incredibly proficient.
Yep.
We train them to be really, really good at what they do, which you have to do.
Yep.
But as you go higher up in the organization, you need different skills.
Yes.
And different skills are demanded from that role.
Yes.
But we don't give people the training and the guidance that they need. So often what you'll see, again, the higher up you go, absent this training, suddenly you can absolutely tell they've been to, presentations coach, they've been to a communications coach, the corporate communications people are up their ass. Corporate marketing is these are the themes you need to bang on about the whole time. So when these people are now giving presentations, it's literally a scripted robot.
Yeah.
And it is a scripted robot with every buzzword you could possibly imagine, just scattered in everything that they say. And after a while, you're thinking, can you talk to me like I'm a normal human being?
Right.
You're allowed to say, you're allowed to say, you're allowed to fuck it up, but talk to me with genuine empathy on a one-to-one basis. But you're literally a scripted buzzword corporate robot at the moment. And people deserve more than that.
I got a good example of that, where there was the office managing partner of Chicago was introducing the new partners at like the annual partners dinner or whatever. Yeah, there's like annual partners dinner, and they always announce. And there were only like, I don't know, a dozen of us there. And to the scripting point, like basically she just read off a script of like the person's background or whatnot. Like, there are a dozen of us. You couldn't have spent like 5 minutes getting like, actually, shouldn't you like know this? you should know this person. You should actually have a personal anecdote or something. Again, we're not talking about 50 people that you have to go do this with. It's just like, take the time and be human, be genuine, like, and actually act like you know who the hell these people are that you're introducing as new partners to a room of partners and their spouses or significant others. It was amazing. It was amazing.
And I guess I get it. You've probably got lawyers saying you can't say that, you can't say that, you can't. And I get that. I don't want to sort of oversimplify it, but this human element is missing.
Yeah.
And when you're in a relationship business, it's that truly counts more than anything else. And I mean, as consultants, right, we live on buzzwords, but just kill the buzzwords. I mean, just get rid of them and just sort of talk like a normal human being. Yeah, it's interesting, but I do believe that is one of the most significant gaps in my experience across the big four is not putting enough attention on leadership training and leadership activity.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I didn't think about that, but I didn't get any of it. And the only reason I was successful is because I got to ride shotgun alongside a very good leader and just kind of absorb by being around it and seeing it and having some probably just natural abilities to do that. But I wasn't given any. And again, when I got thrown in the role, I got like a month's notice. So it was a bit of a chaotic kind of turnover. There was no succession planning, no planning, no preparation. It was like, hey, this person's being moved out. Do you want it? If so, we'll consider you. Mm-hmm. 4 weeks later, it's yours.
Yeah.
Here you go. And that was kind of like, I was given a list of things I couldn't do. Like we talked, like, okay, you can't fire this guy, you can't fire this gal. I know you probably don't want to, but they generate too much revenue, but then it was like, go, just thrown to the wolves.
So what is your view on this? Because we mentioned this a couple of times. So hypothetically, you have a rainmaker who is absolutely toxic. What do you do with that person?
You have to get rid of them. Well, I think you try to see if it's possible to work the toxicity out, to change behaviors, which you're probably not going to be able to. But I think you at least make an effort to see if you can modify. You also have, I do think there are some people, I think different people would define toxicity a little different. Some people can be a little hard. I think there are people that exhibit behaviors and they may not realize how they're maybe just people that aren't self-aware, but not like a total piece of shit. If that makes sense. There are people that exhibit poor behaviors that one could view as toxic or not aligned to a culture or whatnot, that it just might be something that it's a weakness they have and they don't realize it. And when brought in, and they're not, again, going back to, they're also not a piece of shit. Then I think you give them a chance and try to work through it. But let's say they're unfixable.
Yeah.
Let's say they're unfixable.
Yeah.
Many, at that level, most are at that point because they've been empowered to be that way. I think that the damage that's done by allowing everybody in the firm, the practice or whatnot, to see that this guy or gal can get away with the things they're getting away with, and it's simply because, or they intuit that he or she is a rainmaker, and so then it just destroys your culture. It just shows that nobody cares about actually how you behave. As long as you make it rain, you can do all these things. And so
we don't care.
We don't care. It's kind of like, and this back to our point on like core values. Core values are bullshit. Because these firms that are on the wall, these firms don't actually apply them in day-to-day operations and decision-making of the business. Or you wouldn't have those people that rise to great positions and or were just left there because we're worried about losing their revenue.
Yeah. I mean, I would happen to agree with you. I also believe deep down, nobody is irreplaceable.
100%. I'm with you on that one too.
And so if you do have an absolutely toxic rainmaker and that person is removed, I think that person can be replaced. Now, will it be
in that year?
Maybe not. But they can be replaced. But the message it would send to the organization, to the staff, critically to the staff, would be immeasurable.
Absolutely.
In terms of its positive
Because
impact.
the positive impact. Yeah, it's doing the right thing. I think very few people would argue that's not the right thing to do. I think a lot of people would say, here's some reasons you don't do it, even though it's not, like the dancer, like okay, it's a really hard thing to do. Like you said, it can do some near term, value destruction. But like you said, the longer term. But again, right, all these partners, they're only compensated on the near term. So when you look out and everything is about like this year's, cash income that comes to me, and then it resets, and and in 3 years maybe you're like you don't make those decisions that are for the very few of the firms do I see consistently, or sometimes not at all ever, are doing things with the 5-10 year outlook. Because most of the partners that are in leadership positions are going to be out of the firm and retired within 5 and 10 years, so they don't care. Which is also part of the problem of the structure and the culture and the leadership.
But you've absolutely nailed it, and which is my understanding. I could be wrong. Which is one of the reasons Project Everest failed.
Yes,
because of the U.S. retired partners, I believe, had a significant issue with it. But you're absolutely right. And I don't know how you change that dynamic, because structurally, and unless you fundamentally change retirement benefits, you pensions, whatever it may be, but you nailed it. I mean, if you're a tenured partner, a handful of years, not many years away from retirement, you're not going to do a thing that is going to impact what your post-retirement situation will be. Not a thing.
Yep.
Not a thing.
Yeah,
And again, I don't know how you get around that.
This is where I go back to the earlier point of you bring an outsider in that says, okay, well, this is, if these are the values of the organization, this is the culture that we want, these are things we have to do differently, and we have to work people out like this and not let them just stay because they generate $10 million of revenue every year.
Exactly. So you go back to the hunks.
Yes.
You reduce the hunks in the partnership. That's what you have to do.
Or you overhaul the compensation structure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you change and I think that's going to happen. I think they have to. I think
that's inevitable.
The structures, the structures are outdated. They don't work anymore. And you look at even like what's going on, because you think about like, the other thing about pushing partners out a little early, right, which we agree, is the right thing for the firm. But also if you think about, again, from the perspective of the partner, the employee themselves, if they accelerate, okay, you're 55 years old, they accelerate your deferred comp, which is like a 10-year payout and whatnot. That's not going to, people are living like 90 plus now. You aren't going to be able to live off that for the next 40 years. But also if you leave in your mid 50s to really make what are you going to do? You can't go work for a competitor, because then they'll take you deferred, they'll F with your deferred, comp plan and whatnot. You aren't at a point to do very few people can go and do a complete career shift or whatnot. So the people, these partners that are getting pushed out like this are in real trouble as far as what the hell are they going to do? Even though, okay, yeah, fine, they did right by them, but where are you going to, and again, unless they're going to let you go and work but they've also gotten super aggressive at preventing these retired partners from going to other boutique consulting firms or mid-market accounting firms that are now PE backed and trying to bring guys and gals on. It's like, you can't have that both ways. So that's going to have to change.
I completely. They've got to defend their competitive position. So I
sure.
get that, but I think this is part of. There is no quick fix here.
No.
And anything that is done has to have a much longer time frame on it. So you take a 55-year-old tenured partner, vested partner.
Yeah.
It's almost like setting the expectation that when that partner became a partner at 38, I'm just plucking a number out, right? So 38 to 55, whatever the math is on that. But you've then got to just set the expectation. You're going to be making good coin. Don't spend it all.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's
right.
true. Yep. Yep.
And
I actually had some good partner mentors that just told me that directly. It was actually
Yeah.
very helpful advice.
don't spend it all, because if it happens that at age 55, given that you're fully vested, you have to leave, you are going
Have
to
some,
need,
yeah.
you're going to have to fund,
Yeah.
maybe, a few years out of earned income.
Yeah.
And you just have to set that expectation, because you've seen this a thousand times. I've experienced this directly. So, new partners, they get their tax distribution.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I've got, a big dollar account. I'm going to go and buy a car, or I'm going to go and buy a second house, or whatever.
Then the tax payments come in.
And then the tax payments come in. And it's like, well, I don't have any money. But we gave you your tax distribution. But I bought a Porsche.
Exactly. Again, I had really good partner mentors that are like, literally don't spend any of it. Like live as a senior manager, salary, do not do a thing different for a couple of years till you figure out what this cash flow, because it's very confusing on how this cash flow actually
That's
works.
exactly what I said to new partners. 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
You got to let 2 years run until you exactly know what your cash flow and your tax situation is before you make any major capital decision. 100.
This again is where the pay performance works so much better. Don't, the deferred comp stuff, it's outdated. I know they're doing it as a by design to trap these guys and keep them in. But man, that's
Well, they're big handcuffs, though.
huge
They
handcuffs.
are.
Oh, yeah, they
you
use them.
talk about golden handcuffs for an absolute
They are.
reason.
They are. And by design, I think that, joke around. One of my first clients in the Virtas world was this really amazingly eccentric entrepreneur, founder, owner of a business. It was kind of like the first time I'm working like in the middle market with a founder-run business, and it was just, and the guy was crazy in a very cool way, but all over the place. And we're sitting here debating something he's wanting to do, and he just stops the conversation. One does not stay at a firm for 20 years and not be a little risk averse. And that's, you think about the profile of, you're more non-traditional, going military, but a lot of us just got an accounting degree or a master's or an MBA, and then you go in there, and we're not like big risk takers, but kind of by design, right? And so again, they get you. You're in your mid to late 40s, and they're showing you your projections on your long-term incentive plan and all this stuff, cause I've talked to many partners after I've left that want to go, they're like miserable, but they can't get themselves to just do it because they're scared.
Yeah.
They got, and it's not even a golden handcuffs. It's just once you kind of get institutionalized in there, if you can put up with the bullshit, it isn't that hard. Like it is, if you want to run and gun and want to like just be be like a really good leader and generate tons of revenue for the firm because you're, that type A, and you're the firm will let you work as hard as you want and just run you on the ground. It's what they were doing to me. But also, if you just want to kind of just coast and make good money, you can do that for a long time.
Well,
and
you,
then just
you can though, Neal, but coasting has a cost.
Oh, it does. It does.
Which is primarily in enormous stress.
Yeah.
And especially the way that the partnerships now seem to be operating, where there is, less willingness to keep partners.
Right.
If
they're
it's deemed to be surplus to requirement, however that is defined. So coasting comes at an absolute cost. That I almost wouldn't recommend that.
No, I know. I don't recommend.
I'm not suggesting you are, but that you either go for it as hard as you possibly can and try to contribute and perform as well as you can, and if you hit or exceed budget, fantastic. Yeah. And if you don't, well, then it is what it is. But at least you can't be accused of not trying.
I'll add to that. When I think of cost, I actually think of more of the personal cost. Because it doesn't feel good to do that. Most of us aren't wired to half-ass it, and then you're unhappy there, and that precipitates being unhappy, and you're kind of coasting because you're unhappy. So you're just constantly not really that happy, and the only reason you are there is for the money.
Yeah,
and that's
then you should. That's.
But there's so many guys and gals like that. It's unfortunate. Like I said, I've talked to so many of them, and they just can't bring themselves, because they've kind of gone up to a certain lifestyle. Like, again, right? You start getting that money, you start incurring these fixed cost lifestyle and whatnot. It's like, well, if I leave, 'cause I've said, like, there are plenty of ways to make lots of money in this world. You don't have to do that, but you get institutionalized.
But I agree with you. I mean, having an enhanced risk appetite is absolutely part of it. But just look at me. So I was in the army for 10 years,
Right.
in the UK, lived in Switzerland, left the army, joined a US corporation, moved to Nashville, went through the stress of the green card, all that sort of stuff, then moved to Chicago, moved into consulting, 3 of the big 4 in Accenture. I mean, it's you've got it. But I was always of that mindset. If I wasn't happy, I was not going to hang around.
Well,
I just was not going to hang around because I don't have the personality to put all the patience. I am a massively impatient person. I don't have neither the patience nor the personality to put up with bullshit, work with people I don't particularly enjoy. There was one time, this is a few years back, I remember my wife saying to me, it is like, here, you look a bit miserable. And I said to her, there is literally no one in the office whose company I enjoy. And I'm talking partners, not staff.
Right.
Not staff. Generally, the staff are fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
But it was
Especially if you have a hand in
literally, not all partners, but my immediate sort of work cohort. There literally wasn't one whose company that I enjoyed. I didn't want to have lunch with them. And it's like, I have to go. And then wrapped around that, there were other issues, leadership and a whole host of stuff. That's why I said it was never the money.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
It was never the money.
It's also, I think that in my experience, having lived over and worked overseas as well, there is something that's also European. Like I feel like even within the structure, the big 4 structures overseas, is that it's much more common for partners, leaders to jump around from firm to firm. I think there's something culturally, I think also structurally there, they don't tie you up as much. But I think I remember being over there and also just paying attention from having been over there. There was a lot more common for guys and gals to kind of to jump around there. And again, also it's probably just like that personality. Like, if I'm miserable, why should I stay here and put up this bullshit? I got somebody else. I can do the same thing across the street. And like I said, I'm not going over there to just try to get more money. I'm going over there because you guys suck.
Well, that's part of it. And so it's almost sort of linking back to it's linked to your coasting comment. I could have sucked it up and done my job. I was good at my job. But I was just miserable like anything. I said, it's not my personality. I'm just not going to do it.
I've talked to so many people that say the same thing, but I don't have the risk appetite to leave.
Yeah, I remember I left one of the firms, and the comment from the service line leader was, "Oh, what about the pension?" And it was like, I really don't give a shit about the pension. to be really honest with you. Yeah. If this is going to be my working life for the next 15, 20 years.
That's the thing. Like, what's worth your misery?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what would somebody have to pay you to be miserable every day? I mean, that's kind of the way you have to look at it. It's like, guys, what is this? Is it
so here's a story. Toxic leadership, but just shitty leadership. So this same person. And again, this was just at the point where I was deciding I was going to leave. And I was summoned to New York.
I've been summoned.
Oh, no. I had to present. I was leading some internal thing, whatever it was. And so I'd been summoned to present sort of, the status and the update for this big sort of internal initiative. My practice leader was with me, and we were sitting outside this guy's office. And he was a service line leader, so he had a very plush office. He had the sofas outside and, whatever. Sort of sitting there, looking at the watch. Where is he? And he pops out, 5-10 minutes after our appointed time. And he says, I'll never forget, he says, "What are you doing here?" And it was like, I knew I was on the verge of leaving.
Oh.
So
so you had a little more bite. You went on the nice little...
Just a little bit more bite. And we said, well, we're waiting to meet with you. We had I think it was a 4:30 appointment. You requested that you wanted to speak to us about this initiative. Oh, did I? Yes, you did. And then he said, who else is at the meeting? Dunno. It's your meeting at your request. And he said, well, I think we should have, someone else. Okay. Well, can you go and get them? Okay. Wandered off. Another sort of 10 minutes pass. This guy couldn't make the meeting. So we went in. And so it was like a setup here. He was sitting there and he had his computer screen
Yep.
over here. So I could sort of peek around the edge of it. So sort of giving this sort of presentation. And you could absolutely tell zero interest. He had absolutely no interest whatsoever. And I could see what was on his computer screen. And he was checking out a Trump golf course. And it was at that point I was like, fuck this. Yeah, I'm done. And I missed my flight because the meeting was
sort of late.
And it was New York rush hour.
Oh,
and so I would actually say that is verging on the toxic.
Yeah.
Because the lack of respect.
Lack of respect. Absolutely.
And it was a meeting at his request.
Yeah, a
And
lot of good stories like that.
This is a culture that is completely anathema to who I am. I want nothing more to do with this whatsoever.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool. Well, that's probably a great story to end this on. All right, man. Thank you.
Neal, thank you so much. Delighted. Thank you.
And that's it for this episode of Consulting Uncensored with Neal McNamara. Want to join the conversation? Connect with Neal on LinkedIn to share your thoughts on today's episode and join a community of consulting professionals who want to cut through the BS. Thanks for listening. There's a new episode every other Wednesday. We'll see you then.